Dear YouTube monitors, please don't restrict or demonetize this video again. This is an educational video. It does not glorify violence. No extreme violence is shown, and all law enforcement actions are shown in context for learning purposes only. Folks, today's video is meant for police officers, so if you are not a police officer, you may not get much use out of this video. But let's talk today about police de-escalation training. And since the riots that happened in the early 2020s, you have seen a lot of the media and people in the BLM movement demanding that police officers go through de-escalation training. And as a response for all this demand for police de-escalation training, now we see a lot of agencies that are giving this de-escalation training to their police officers on a yearly basis. Now, unfortunately, a lot of these people that are demanding police de-escalation training have no understanding of the realities of policing. They have no understanding of what it's like to, on multiple times during your shift, to have to struggle with people that are wigging out on drugs or on spice, or having to wrestle with somebody or fight somebody that's having a violent schizophrenic episode and things like that. So the whole purpose of today's video is just to really kind of hopefully give you, the police officer, really an understanding of de-escalation training that you're probably going to find yourself having to go through every year for the rest of your career. Now, many of you police officers that are watching this video are probably going to have an experience that's pretty similar to mine. When I very first became a police officer 20 years ago, the police academy told me that talking people down, which is now called de-escalation, but the police academy taught me, hey, it's better to talk people down, to talk yourself out of that fight rather than fighting everybody. And then after you graduated the police academy and you got placed with your field training officer told you the same thing as, hey, you can either come out here and fight everybody that wants to be belligerent with you, or you can do the smart thing and try to, and most of the time, you can talk people out of that fight. And then to continue on, if you are like me, then you also learned yourself very quickly that it is much easier, that the police academy and your FTO were both right. It is much easier to try to talk people down out of that fight rather than fighting every belligerent person that you come across. I mean, you learn very quickly that even if you do win that fight against that bad guy, you are still sore afterwards. You still have bruises the next day. So it is just much easier to talk people down rather than fight everybody. So this de-escalation training that so many people are calling for is something that we have already been doing for decades now. But what these de-escalation people don't understand is that most of the time talking somebody down does work, but just unfortunately, some people you just can't talk down. Some people you just can't de-escalate. It's just a matter of fact, when you have somebody that's drunk and mad enough, or you have somebody that's having a mental episode, you just can't talk those people down. You just can't de-escalate them. And the unfortunate reality is that a lot of these people that are calling for de-escalation training, they seem to believe that we have this magical power to force de-escalation on somebody. But the reality is that it takes two people for a situation to de-escalate. It takes the police officer to de-escalate that situation, and it takes the suspect to accept that de-escalation and allow that situation to de-escalate. So again, you need to remember, you can only offer that de-escalation. Again, that suspect has to accept that de-escalation. If that suspect does not accept your de-escalation attempts, then that suspect is the one that has taken de-escalation off of the table. So a very important thing for you to remember is that de-escalation is great. We've been doing it for decades, but don't get yourself hurt trying to take de-escalation too far with a suspect that is not accepting your offer of de-escalation. And the next point that I want to touch on in this video is that the next time that you are talking to somebody, maybe about an incident that occurred, if that person asks, hey, did the police de-escalate that situation? You need to remind that person that, again, it takes two people to de-escalate that situation, the cop and also that bad guy. And if that bad guy doesn't accept the de-escalation, then it's off the table. And police should not get themselves hurt because a bad guy is not accepting that de-escalation, and the media and other people like that they don't have an understanding of how these incidents actually go down. Now, like I mentioned earlier, because of all these people demanding de-escalation training, again, a lot of agencies across the country now are giving de-escalation training to their officers on a yearly basis. The one thing I want to caution you about is that if your agency is giving you de-escalation training, and this training is being given by some professor from some liberal university from the West Coast, I caution you to take a pause with that training. Professors and people like that, these shirts and ties that sit in these offices, they are going to teach you things that look good on paper, but these people have no understanding of the realities of what you as a police officer face every time you begin and work your shift. Now, if your agency is smart, the person that they will have giving you your de-escalation training will be a long-time experienced police officer who has had many fights during his career. That is the type of instructor that will be able to tell you what works and what doesn't work, and when it would be good to de-escalate, or when you have to unfortunately commit great violence to keep yourself from being injured or killed. Now, let me give you some quick tips on good de-escalation. Like I mentioned earlier, don't get yourself hurt trying to take de-escalation too far. Now, I am definitely not saying that you jump straight into violence, but I want you to see this video example here where this officer took de-escalation too far. When this guy pulled his handgun, when this suspect pulled his handgun out of his jacket pocket, this officer still did not pull his handgun out, even once that officer was behind the cover of that brick wall. Now, personally, I hope either this officer resigned or was terminated after this incident, because this officer is a danger to himself and to other officers. And the only reason why this officer is even still alive is my belief is that guy honestly did not want to kill that officer, and that officer was lucky it turned out the way he did. And here's another tip about de-escalation. Besides not letting yourself get hurt by a suspect, also don't let other innocent people get hurt by a suspect. Here's a video example of where officers continued to try to de-escalate with a deranged guy with a knife, and because they hesitated too long to use deadly force against this guy, he ended up taking a female hostage, and then once he started sawing at her neck with his knife, then the officers, out of a panic, shot at him, and then ended up shooting and killing not only the suspect, but then also the hostage too, the victim herself. We have to remember that when you have a suspect that is armed with a deadly weapon, that suspect is an immediate deadly threat to anybody that is within range of his deadly weapon that he has. So if you have to shoot a suspect in order to save innocent people, then that's just what you have to do. Now, that video example was of somebody that was not contained because he was in near proximity to innocent people, plus he was on the move. But when you have a dangerous suspect that is armed with a weapon and they are contained, meaning that they aren't moving too much or they aren't within near proximity of innocent people, that is when de-escalation comes in really great. When you have a contained, armed, and dangerous suspect like that, this allows you to create distance between you and him. This allows you to create reaction time between you and him should he suddenly charge at you with that knife or whatever weapon that he has. And then if that suspect does actually start walking, then that distance does allow you to clear the pathway of potential innocent people for that potential path that armed and dangerous suspect is walking. And plus, with you keeping this distance, this reactionary time between you and the other officers and that armed and dangerous suspect, again, this is buying you time that you can hopefully get a negotiator there, somebody that's trained to talk this person down so that this ends in a peaceful outcome with nobody getting injured, which is what we want. And when you have a contained suspect like this, only one officer should be doing the talking to that suspect. Here is a video example of where multiple officers are barking commands at this suspect, and you can see that it irritates him and also confuses him.
Don't touch the gun. Just fucking turn around.
Bag up. I'm telling you to bag up. I just told him bag up if I can set the gun down.
Don't touch the gun. Go down on your knees now.
I'm not going on my knees, so bag up.
So this video is just to give you some things to think about. De-escalation is great, but don't get yourself or innocent people hurt because you try to take it too far, because you try to take it to the point that people that aren't police officers unrealistically expect you to take it to. So now, if you've had some good experiences in de-escalation, I want you to comment down below with your experiences so we all can learn from it. And if you would like to learn how a self-defense police action shooting will affect you both mentally, physically, and legally, then click on the video that should be appearing on the screen just about now to learn that powerful knowledge. Anyways, folks, this is enough internet for me today. I do need to go train, and folks, if you made it this far, hey, thank you very much for watching, and I pray that you have a good night.